Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Madam Secretary, you won't find this in the brief book, but thank you for your work with me on the Blackfeet tribe. As the gentleman from Oregon has said, that we've made a lot of promises, but not a lot of promises kept. In the case of the Blackfeet, we'd like your commitment that you'll continue to work with me and make sure the promise that was made to the great tribe is met.
We'll always work with you.
Okay, let's shift to critical minerals.
Okay.
So, Madam Secretary, is it your policy that critical minerals should be sourced from countries that are stewards of the environment, like the U.S. and our allies, or sourced from Russia and China that don't share our same values?
Congressman, what I'll say is the President is committed
Pretty
to...
much a yes and no. It's your policy, Madam.
Our policy is to work to make sure we have the best...
I'll take that as a maybe. So are you aware that China produces more emissions than any other country on the planet?
I have probably read that somewhere.
Are you also aware that China produces 90% of the world's plastic from 4 rivers?
I will take that as
You also are aware that China is the biggest offender on illegal fishing?
Thank you, Chair. Congressman.
Have you read the Department of Interior report on critical minerals dated December 17?
December 17th of 2021?
2017.
2017. I have not read that full report from 2017.
Are you aware that China controls by proxy production the supply chain of critical minerals that are critical to both the EV world and defense?
Thank you for that information.
Are you aware by multiple studies that in order to satisfy the present requirements of EV and critical minerals to defense, it would take an increase of 2,000% of mining for 20 years? Are you aware of that?
Thank you for the information, Congressman.
Are you also aware that northern Minnesota is home to those critical minerals that are necessary for EV and our Defense Department?
I think there are critical minerals across our country. Yes.
Did you, before you put a moratorium, did you identify and fast-track those sources of critical minerals that you just mentioned?
Are you talking about in Minnesota and the boundary waters?
You had mentioned that there's other places within the United States that also hold critical minerals that are required for the country. Did you identify those and have you fast-tracked the production or permitting
We are
or identification
in Minnesota particularly.
across our country?
Across
Can
our
you
country.
pick any place that you've identified for an alternative to critical minerals to fast-track so we're not vulnerable to China and Russia for our very critical economy, both in defense and EV?
We are working currently on identifying those critical minerals. That is with the U.S. Geological Survey, and of course
But you would identify, and you would agree that not having the critical minerals identified and produced in this country would present a security problem and prevent us from moving ahead on multiple issues, and we're vulnerable to China for very critical components of our economy. Would you agree?
Congressman, I know that energy independence is a priority of President Biden.
Thank you. Let's shift to one of my favorite topics, the Aleutian chain. As a SEAL, I've spent a lot of time in the Aleutian chain. So would you agree that pregnant women, either indigenous, native or not, deserve access to health care?
Absolutely.
Well, would you agree that the village of King Cove deserves that same access to health care?
I think every American should have access to health care.
Do you agree when the wildlife refuge was put in place by, I believe, President Jimmy Carter, did the village agree to give up their access to health care to the property that was traditionally theirs but then made into a refuge?
When I visited King Cove, they shared that information with me.
So is there a study that suggests a small acreage in the middle of the Aleutian chain that was designated to be a wildlife refuge, a small gravel road would be an environmental catastrophe to such that you would deny access to that village for health care?
Congressman, we are working to ensure that the village of King Cove has the access that they need. And
how would you
the
do that without a road?
conversations are
I've been there, and
ongoing.
I've been a SEAL and crossed the beach. I know when the weather is inclement, that nor a rotary wing or a boat will meet the requirement to go around the corner. But yet a road would, a small road. So how is this possible? You're working with them when you removed the ability for them to have that road.
Congressman, I have, two of my high-level staff were just in King Cove having conversations with the tribe, and I want to assure you that we care deeply about that tribe and want to make sure that they have access to the medical care they need.
And do I have your commitment, you'll work with this committee to make sure that the wonderful village of King Cove has access to health care?
I will absolutely work with this committee on any item that you bring forward to us.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.